Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing high concept horror video number 2, and we are going to be talking about all 13 of the Halloween films and giving them all astrological signs. First off, I just want to say I'm not an astrology girly or anything, but I've always thought that my sign did fit me pretty well, and it wasn't until I started noticing that some of the people in my circle that don't get along well actually do have opposing signs to each other that I thought that there might actually be a little bit more to this idea. However, this is mainly just for entertainment value, and I thought that it would be a fun video for you guys. So I do want to say that we are using the 13th sign that was proposed but not actually added into the zodiac due to the fact that we have a 12-month calendar system already, and that would just complicate things. But the Halloween franchise is complicated and we need a 13th one in here, so we're going to have it in here. And throughout this research, I definitely think that I paired these well together, but there could be some other pairings in here, so just keep that in mind. But this was what I thought went the best together. I will also say that when I was doing the research, it seemed like multiple different websites couldn't really agree on what the official date ranges for these signs would be. So I'm just going to be saying, you know, late of one month through late of another month, as opposed to actually saying the real dates, just since I am not 100% sure which one was actually correct out of what I saw. So if you don't know what your sign is, go look that up really quick if that's something that you care about as I go through these films. And I also want to say that there could potentially be spoilers for the Halloween franchise in here, and you should probably not watch this yet if you haven't seen those films. But honestly, if you haven't seen these yet, what are you doing with your life? Go do that right now. First off, we have John Carpenter's classic from 1978, the original Halloween. I have paired this one with Virgo. So this sign, if you have it, you are born from late August through late September. It is represented by the Maiden or the Virgin, and that can be related to the original Halloween in a couple ways. First off, this is the original, which is untouched and unaffected by the sequels, and it also relates to Laurie herself. I think that she is definitely the epitome of the virginal final girl that we think of when we think of ones from this time period. Some of the other traits that work well for this movie and this sign would be that they are practical, detail-oriented, and they are perfectionists. I think it's pretty much a fact that this is one of the best horror films of all time, and it is pretty much a perfect film in my eyes. I think that it was made with great care by everyone involved. Moving on to Halloween 2 from 1981, I paired this one with Taurus. People with this sign are born from late April through late May, and they are represented by the bull. People with this sign are reliable, grounded, and maybe a little bit greedy. So I think that this is definitely one of the most reliable sequels in the franchise. It is always a good time, and it is well made as well. And I think that it does take a grounded approach to this idea, and it's not as off the wall as a lot of the sequels that we will talk about later in this franchise. And the greed comes into play just with the making of this film entirely. I think that it's well known that John didn't want to go with this route for the franchise. He definitely wanted to go more the anthology route that we'll be talking about next. But it was obvious that after the success of the first one, they needed to continue the storylines of everyone that they had in the original. And I am glad that they did, because this is my favorite franchise. So moving on to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and this one actually gets my sign, which is Aquarius. So when I was doing this video, like preparation for it, I definitely was hoping that my sign would get to go with one of my favorites in the franchise, and that didn't really happen here. I do like this one a lot, but I would put a lot of other ones ahead of it. But I was never going to just automatically assign my sign with whatever movie I like the most, because I wanted it to actually embody the one that it went with. And it absolutely works with this one. So people with this sign are born from late January through late February, and they are represented by the water bearer. So people with this sign are innovative, independent, and they are rebellious, revolutionary, progressive. I think that this one is just completely independent of the rest of the franchise. It has its own story entirely. And I think that, you know, even being an anthology is pretty progressive and, you know, different for the time. I don't think that you saw a lot of anthologies around that time period. And I think that this was rebellious due to the fact that no one really wanted this beyond John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. I mean, yeah, maybe a few, but overall, I think people wanted it to go the route of Halloween 2 and beyond. So moving on to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, we have Libra. So for this one, people with this sign are born from late September through late October. They are represented by the scales. People with this sign are very balanced and symmetrical. For this one, they really had to go back to basics and see what had worked for the original and the second film. And I think that overall they did do a very good job of that. They really made it like a return to form for the franchise. And it does feel very balanced. It is very symmetrical to that original film. Moving on to Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This one is a very misunderstood sequel, and what better zodiac sign to put with this than the most misunderstood one, which is Scorpio. So people with this sign are born from late October through late November, and I think that they do get a bad rap, just like this movie does. People with this sign are very passionate, and they are intense, vengeful, and sometimes dangerous as a result. They also kind of hold on to stuff that they can use later to exact their revenge at the perfect time for them. And I think that anybody who watches these movies a lot would tell you that this one just does feel very different. And it could be that we have a director with a very different style than what we had gotten previously. And I think that there is a lot of passion in the filmmaking. We also have very passionate characters. I think we have the most passionate and intense version of Dr. Loomis in this entry. And we also have Tina, who is very passionate and wild in this one, just in a very different way than what Dr. Loomis is. We also have to discuss the fact that there is literally revenge in the title of this, so it is fitting to put the sign that deals with revenge for this movie. So moving on to Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. This one definitely feels like just a weird mix of two different movies, so what better sign to put with that than Gemini? So people with this sign are born from late May through late June. They are represented by the twins. And as I said, this does feel like two very different movies, and that's because there are two different movies here. There was a lot of meddling that went on behind the scenes, and that means that there was a lot of reshoots, and it ended up that there were two different versions of this film, whether that be the theatrical cut or the producer's cut. And it really doesn't matter which one of those you watch, they both just kind of feel incomplete. And don't get me wrong, I actually adore this entry in the franchise, but I can admit that it is kind of a mess. And I think that it is very erratic and unstable, and those are some common traits of the people that are Geminis. I think that they really did try to adapt, but it just did not pan out well. But I still love it. Moving on to Halloween H2O, 20 years later, we have Capricorn. People with this sign are born from late December through late January. They are represented by the goat. And People with this sign are responsible, dedicated, highly ambitious, and patient. So for this one, they had an interesting task to accomplish. They were not really happy with the route that had been taken with the previous sequels, so they needed to kind of rewrite things and just go a totally different direction with it. So they decided to retcon the previous 3 sequels and bring back Laurie Strode. And I think that doing this big of a change is definitely ambitious in itself. And I think that it definitely feels like they still took that grounded approach like they had in the original ones in this one. And it felt like they were very dedicated to making this as good as they could. I think that they were trying to do better than what came before it, and largely I think they achieved that. There are some small nitpicks I have with this movie, but it is definitely one of my favorites. And I would say that the patience part of this relates to Michael himself, because with the fact that they retconned the previous sequels, that means he has not done anything and gone after anyone for 20 years, which is a hell of a cooling off period for sure. So moving on to Halloween Resurrection, we have Sagittarius. So people with this sign are born from late November through late December. They are represented by the Archer, and people with this sign are excessively frank, tactless, and insensitive. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of good traits for a Sagittarius, but we are talking about Halloween Resurrection right now, so we've got to focus on the bad. And I think that this movie was very insensitive to both Laurie and Michael, and there are some different reasons as to why. So the end of Halloween H2O was just incredible. However, it was never their intention for it to be Michael behind that mask at the end of the movie. And Halloween Resurrection sealed that deal and made it the case that that was not him. And so that took away the best moment from Laurie Strode easily, which just makes me mad to this day. And on top of that, they ended up killing her off in such a quick and unceremonious way. And I know that Jamie Lee did not want to come back for this movie, rightfully so, but they still could have handled it better and, you know, went a better route with it. I would have been okay with her dying. It just, they did a horrible job with it. And this one also messed things up for Michael. So if he was going to die, the end of Halloween H2O was the perfect way for that to go. It was done where Laurie was the one who did it, and it was just the perfect end. But he didn't get that either. And in this one, instead, he's pretty much taken out by a combination of kung fu and an electrocution to the groin. Honestly, I don't know how they came up with that. One of the other traits for Sagittarius is that they are immature, and I feel like that is definitely immature in itself. So moving on to Halloween from 2007, we have Aries. People with this sign are born from late March through late April. They are represented by the Ram, and people with this sign are short-tempered, they're bold, and they can have extreme aggression, and they're very energetic as well. So I think that when Rob was tasked with doing a remake of such a classic film, he did want to do some different things here, and took a pretty different approach with giving him a backstory, and an excessively trashy backstory at that. And he did make a bold choice with that. I'm not saying I like it, but it is bold. So I think that we do have one good thing out of this being Rob's choice of Tyler Mane for the adult version of Michael Myers. He is certainly energetic in this role, and he is an absolute machine. He is easily the most aggressive version of Michael that we have gotten, and honestly, I don't know that anybody else has topped it. Moving on to Halloween 2 from 2009, we have Cancer. So people with this sign are born from late June through late July, and they are represented by the crab. People with this sign are known for being very sensitive, and I don't think that that applies to this movie really, but I will say that the other parts of this description do fit this movie. So people with this sign are imaginative, and they are moody and clingy. So Rob got to have some more creative control for this one, and we see things like, you know, the white horse element, and I think that that is definitely an imaginative route to take. It was definitely something that we hadn't seen before, and I think that the moody part of this is actually the cinematography. I've just always felt that it was very atmospheric in this one. And where does clingy come in? That would be Scout's performance as Lori in this one. I think that it definitely feels like she is clinging very hard to her sanity, as well as just, you know, the life that she had before the horrors of this first film. Moving on to Halloween 2018, this one I paired with the 13th sign, Ophiuchus. And if I pronounce that wrong, I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to do about it. So if they use this one, it would go between Scorpio and Sagittarius. And it is represented by the serpent bearer. People with this sign, if they included it, would be mysterious, curious, and they would be seekers of wisdom. So I think that a really common theme in Halloween 2018 would be the seeking of wisdom. We have multiple characters that are doing just that throughout this movie. And we have the podcasters. So they are definitely trying to get some insight into Michael and his crimes. We also have Dr. Sartain, who desperately wants to know more about Michael's psyche, as well as just knowing what it feels like to commit those crimes. And lastly, we have Lori herself, who at this point in the story does truly believe that Michael was coming after her, and that was calculated and not just random. And I'm sure that she really wants to know why she was targeted, if that was the case. Moving on to Halloween Kills, we have Leo. This one, if you have this sign, you were born from late July through late August, and they are represented by the lion. People with this sign are very dramatic, passionate, theatrical, and fiery. I think that Halloween Kills is just a very showy movie overall, and there are a ton of over-the-top kills. I think there's over-the-top acting as well, and it's just very theatrical throughout. We have people that are really upset in Haddonfield due to the stuff that Michael has been doing. They just want to take him down at any cost so he can stop inflicting pain upon their town. And I think that Tommy Doyle is potentially the most fired up out of any of the people in the town. And I definitely think that some theatrical scenes in this would have to be the fireman massacre, as well as the part with the escaped mental patient in the hospital. And for our final entry in the franchise, it fittingly goes with the final sign of the zodiac. Halloween Ends is with Pisces. So people with this sign are born from late February through late March, and they are represented by the fish. People with this sign are artistic, imaginative, they can separate themselves from reality and get lost in dreams. They can also try to run from their real life problems. So say what you want about this movie and, you know, the direction that it took and the Corey storyline in general, but you can definitely say that this is very imaginative and just a different route than possibly anybody was expecting. And I think that some artistic scenes in this one would be the team up between Corey and Michael when they go after the nurse and the doctor, and then also Corey's spree in the junkyard feels artistic to me. I think that Corey was irrevocably changed due to the events in the beginning of this movie. He went from having a bright future to no future in an instant. He was definitely treated poorly by the people in Haddonfield, and then, you know, Michael's influence on top of that, that was just the final straw for him. And I think that he really embodies the Pisces trait of, you know, getting lost in dreams and separating from reality. He really had nothing that he could do to ever get back into the real world and back to the man that he once was. So what did you think of this video? Did you agree with my choices, or did you think that there were some signs that would have been better with other movies than what I put them with? Let me know down in the comments. Are you excited that I put your sign with one of your favorite movies, or are you mad that I put it with one that you hate? Let me know that too, because I would love to have discussions about it. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can also follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd so you can see what I have been watching lately. I want to thank everyone for their support so far. It doesn't go unnoticed, that's for sure. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.